Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Jessica and I are here to do a reaction to a consultative framework video that Al had put together in one of his classes. So we will be following along with him, providing our comments and reactions to all of the wisdom he shared in this video.
Let's do it.
We're going to talk about a consulting framework. The Consultative Framework. It's a framework that you can use from a business perspective to be a brilliant soloist, to be a great team player, as you'll see, solving very complex business problems, communicating in a variety of modes and channels in order to reach your customer, your client, your boss, your peer as needed to bring that business case to life. And then obviously with the level of detail that we're talking about, a level of grit and determination to get it done in terms of time, cost, and quality, right? Because that's what we're trying to do. That's the name of the game in business, to be able to do things well, time, cost, quality, so that we can increase revenue, reduce cost per transaction, get closer to the customer because the customer has the money, right? So here's what I want to call your attention to, just like right off the bat. So,
Jess, you pause it for a second. I think this is a great thing for Gen Z people to know, because if you're starting a new job or you're changing your career path, this is a method where you can add value almost immediately if you use this framework to break down problems, to figure out who's who in your new job. This is a way where you can do it over and over again, no matter the subject, and add value immediately. So I think this is a great thing to teach Gen Zers about early on, but also I think everyone can benefit from learning this consulting framework and can take something away from it.
like the why and the how of this. A lot of times what I run into is people who are so technically proficient, like they know the answer before other people know the question, like it's those kind of people. But the issue that I see so often is they get challenged to articulate the business value with maybe a technical problem. Typically then, the decision makers of that, solving that problem or solving for that opportunity are people, right, who make informed decisions. So it all lines up into what's called people, process, and technology.
I think that's such a good point. Al's saying there are really smart, technically proficient people out there, but like he said, a lot of them struggle to kind of articulate that business value behind the problem that they're solving. And like Al said, decision makers are people, and the people that you're speaking with, they might not always be super technical. And so if you want that buy-in, you need to know how to kind of translate your expertise into something that they care about, of course. So, the outcomes, the impact, and the value. And following this structured process, this will help keep you organized and kind of simplify your talk track. So that way, if it is super technical, you can simplify it and connect with the people that you're talking to and talking with.
When you run into somebody who, for example, is just super technical, maybe, but they can't perhaps articulate the business value to those informed or those decision makers. So what I offer to you is a process that's repeatable, that you can use again and again and again. And it doesn't matter the industry, it doesn't matter who the client is, it doesn't really matter. The words may change, the vocabulary may change, but your approach doesn't have to. And if you can remove the process hurdle and repeat it again and again and again, you get better and better at it. It's no different than riding a bike. First time you rode a bike, my assumption is you probably rode into a wall, you probably crashed, or you probably ran into whoever was helping you learn. By the 10th time, you were actually probably pretty good. By the 20th, you were really good. By the 50th, you were super awesome. Then you developed such muscle memory with that. If I were to bring a bicycle in here right now, I would imagine any one of you could hop on that bike and ride away. You're really good at it. That's what this is. It's that same kind of process, developing what's called muscle memory. To bring it into a little bit more focus, everybody, you can even like kind of close your eyes. Everybody knows what a Christmas tree sort of looks like. There's that sort of stereotypical Christmas tree. The process is that tree. It's immutable. It looks like a Christmas tree. The only thing that ever changes are the decorations that are on it. Your client is different. The problem may be different. The opportunity may be different. But it's really kind of an immutable process. So that's why we do it. It enables people who maybe aren't in the strongest suit in terms of people, process, and technology. It's an enabling tool that you can take with you anywhere. Now,
Never heard that.
a lot of times folks don't even know where to start though. Like, how do I start in creating this process so that I can analyze a business problem, take advantage of a business opportunity, whatever the case may be? I offer you this. Real simple. If you have no idea where to start, who, what, when, where, why, how, questions. If you can ask those most basic questions, people will volunteer the answers. If you just go to them, be you an early career professional or 25-year professional, doesn't matter. If you just go to people and say, I don't know where to get started, I don't know how to do this, people will disregard you. Clients won't pay attention to you, customer won't pay attention to you, your boss won't.
It's so important to show that initiative and the curiosity. And that opens doors, because a lot of the times when you kind of challenge people by even asking, why, you'll get them to think about, and reflect the current approach. And then, it starts the conversation, and then you can figure out, is there a better way to do this? But showing that initiative and having that curiosity at all stages of your career is really important. And asking the basic questions can help you a lot of the times, solve the problem and get to the actual pain points that your client's struggling with.
Yeah, I agree. And I think also we've talked about this before, even expanding these questions, and Al said this, to get your other team members to think about why things are done a certain way, where you can eventually ask the what if questions, and then you become a trusted advisor. That's how you start that process, how you start developing your relationships with people, is asking these types of questions and then solutioning all together with your team.
Pay attention to. Frankly, your colleagues won't pay attention to you. Why? Because they don't want to invest the time. If you're not investing the time, why should I? But rather, if you go to them with questions that are pointed, even if you don't know anything, they'll volunteer answers. So just like real simple stuff. Real simple. What's happening? Why do we do this? How often do we do this? Why do we do it this way? I love that one. It's my favorite question. When people, you ask them, you say, well, why do you do this problem? Why do you do this opportunity? Why do you do this thing the way that you do? Inevitably, almost inevitably, people will say, because that's the way we've always done it. It's the dumbest thing in the world, isn't it? But it opens a door of opportunity for you. So, okay, if you're ready to go, then you can start asking, well, why do you do it that way? Okay, you've always done it that way? Well, tell me more about that. Next, if you still don't know the questions yet, just tell me more about it. The universe or some divine power or whatever the answer is has given us 2 ears and 1 mouth. There's a reason for that. So that we listen twice as much as we talk. So let people tell you their problem. Let them tell you the answer sometimes. Look for patterns in what they say.
Yeah, and
if
Jeff,
they keep coming back to the same sort of root cause.
When at the beginning of this, Al was talking about, and you mentioned it too, how important it is to speak to those people that have the expertise and have the knowledge and the background on some of the more technical things, and asking those questions to those people that have that information, where it might not be a skill set of theirs to present the business value or understand that, or how to communicate that. That's where asking these specific questions is so important, because you get the technical knowledge and background that you might not have. And then you, as a part of this framework, can set up that business case using that information without getting too in the weeds with the technical pieces of whatever the problem at hand is.
Cause issue, make sure you write that down, figure that out, because you're going to use that then in your solutioning process later. They're telling you the problem. Now, when you build that consulting framework, it actually gets pretty straightforward in a hurry. I didn't say easy, I said straightforward. But if you duplicate this process again and again, you will solve a lot of complex business problems for people, and they will love you for it. It's a simple cover slide, right? Let's be creative, but let's be informative. It's a simple cover slide that we're doing. Next is nice table of contents. This is the table of contents that is essentially immutable of the consultative framework. Regardless of client or business problem, you start with this all the time. Because they're not interested necessarily in how do you solve my technical issue. Yeah, that's part of it. The goal is to solve my business problem or take advantage of my business opportunity. So you'll see, it's actually pretty straightforward. You intro the business problem or the opportunity based upon discussions you have with that customer, that client, that boss, that stakeholder. You then recount by gathering a bunch of info and data. What's the current state? Where are we today? You ask them what their goal is. That's the future state. You figure out the delta between the current state and the future state. Those are gaps. You then use that big giant brain of yours, critical thinking to solve complex business problems, to come up with a bunch of alternative solutions that may satisfy a broad swath of the audience. Then you make your recommendation. And you make a compelling case for your recommendation using all the tools at your disposal. Then, with that recommendation, provide a roadmap to that client to say, here's how we can get there. And then, immediate next steps. Like, you know you've got it. Get those immediate next steps out there for them, so when they say, I love it, what do we do now? You're ready to go. So,
something important about the table of contents too, it seems super simple. Like, you would obviously include a table of contents in a presentation, but it's so important because yes, it keeps you organized as the presenter, but then it also manages the expectations of your audience, because then when you go through your presentations and you're presenting the gaps and somebody's really interested in the alternatives, they know that that's their next slide and they're not going to interrupt you or mess up your flow. But then it also just sets the stage for your presentation, so you know what's going to be covered, your client knows what's going to be covered, and then you know at the end you're all going to kind of stack hands and say, here's where we go next. And so I think that's a really important thing. It seems very simple, but if it's done right, it makes a huge difference for your relationship with your client in the end.
I love that. That's a good call out. It immediately adds kind of structure to the agenda and sets expectations. And another call out just before we get into the rest of this is the importance of being detail oriented in any presentation.
Yeah.
So that means, obviously the right grammar, but punctuation at the end of every sentence, consistency in that way, the same font, your titles have a certain font size, and then the actual body of that slide is a different, font size. Those things that take really not a lot of effort at all, but make such a big difference in the way that this stakeholder, the client, the team is going to receive the information. It's just so important to remember the importance of it, because at the end of the day, I know people who you'll lose them immediately. They'll become distracted if, one sentence has a period, but the other doesn't, or there's a spelling error. Ultimately, the client wants to know that they can trust you and that you're going to do good work. And the lack of paying attention to details like that, it's like, if you can't put a simple slide together, how am I going to trust you with my big business problem? So really, really important to remember that.
Yeah, that's one of those things, Jess, where if you do it right, nobody is ever going to notice it. But then if you do it incorrectly, people are going to call you out constantly. So that's so true. And it really messes up your flow if you have even a little something off, but it won't mess you up if you don't have anything wrong. So yeah, that's a really good point.
Exactly. And then one more thing before Al gets into this first slide. So, people, they want to feel heard and understood. And I love actually the introduction slide and the current state slide, because right out of the gate, that's your opportunity to show the client, to show the stakeholder that you get it. You're right there with them. You want to get in the boat with them. You understand the challenge that they're facing, what the opportunity is, and then why it matters to their organization. It immediately builds trust. So those first two slides, they're all important, but just a call out there about, why those two are so important. It's that opportunity to connect with the client out the gate.
So true.
You introduce the problem statement and or the business opportunity. Articulate it clearly, articulate it well. I want to call your attention to a few things. Business, urgency, strategic. You're solving a business problem. Why? Because that's where the money is. That's where the opportunity is. The urgency and the strategic nature of it are kind of tied. See, if it's not urgent for stakeholders to solve that problem or take advantage of that opportunity, it's really not strategic then. And it's really not all that important. So you want to find what is the urgency associated with it. Now, of course, there are other items that are associated with, do you want us to fix it? Do you have the budget to fix it? How do you handle these things as the time constraint associated with it? But for our purposes right here, that's it. Business problem or opportunity, urgency, and the timing associated with it. The last part is gather some data. Is it really a strategic element, thing that we're trying to solve for? See, because if you can do that, you then can frame the issue so that it's now important to that client. And when it's important to them, they will spend time, money, and energy with you. If it's not important, it's just a hobby. They won't have any interest, and neither should you, frankly. That's your intro slide. It's one, maybe two. Now we go to then that current state. Current state is exactly what it says. Here's where we are today. You do that by gathering requirements, gathering information, gathering data from the various stakeholders and other parties who are involved, plus your own institutional or tacit knowledge, or knowledge that you gain from wherever, your organization as subject matter experts. Big thing. From that problem that you identify what are the top 5, top 3 pain points or opportunity points that the customer or client is experiencing. That's what you want to hone in on, right? Solving their problem. You engage at the stakeholder level. See, all too often, what ends up happening, especially for early career professionals, is they're not sure who should I be paying attention to. Especially for folks who are like technical leaders. A lot of times, they'll get lost in sort of the technical aspect. And so they're listening to folks who might be down in the weeds and might have legit concerns, but it's not at the stakeholder level. Those are the people who have the budget. Those are the people who have the authority. Those are the people who understand the urgency and the strategic nature of it. Right? So you have to engage at the stakeholder level. Current state. It's a document of 1, 2, 3 slides that outline, here's where we are. As you can imagine, if there's a current state, there must be a future state. The future state then is, well, where do you want to be, client? Like, what's the goal? I want to call attention to two things here. One, it's desired outcome. So that word outcome means something. Outcome in a business parlance means the achievement of the strategic vision. See, you can implement a scope of work, but maybe that doesn't really satisfy what the client is looking for. Yeah, you checked all the boxes, but what you didn't do is help them get to where they needed to get. Case in point, if somebody says, I want to pay you to mow the lawn, great. You go and you mow the lawn. Did you fulfill the requirement? Yes, you did. But now they said, well, the reason why I wanted you to mow the lawn is because I wanted to plant flowers in that same area. So you're not doing that. No, I'm not doing that. Yeah, but then you haven't succeeded. Yeah, but I fulfilled the scope of work. Yeah, but that's not what I really needed. I need you to be able to mow the lawn, meaning clean it, make sure it looks nice, put dirt in so I can plant flowers. That's the difference between the scope and the outcome. The outcome is what they strategically want, need, and can afford. So that's why I use that term. And then obviously metrics are the numbers, the quantitative that goes with it so that you can prove your value. That's the future state. One other thing that you need to understand is achievable and realistic. If somebody says, well, my vision is to shoot a rocket to Jupiter over the course of the next 6 months, I probably can't help you. I probably don't think anybody can help you. But here's where I can help. Let's solve this business problem instead. If there's a current state, which is where we are, which is our business problem, our business issue, or our business opportunity, and future state is where I want to be, the space between the two of them is probably the gap.
Al touched a little bit on, actually identifying who the key decision makers are from the stakeholders group, and that's such a good point. And something I think worth noting as well is, depending on the stakeholder, they have their own kind of role and set of responsibilities and agenda. So as you're going through the presentation, well, as you're actually crafting it and then presenting, is keep that in mind, tailor your message based on the audience and then come prepared with material that might address the concerns or questions that you could anticipate based on the stakeholder. And recognize that because the different stakeholders kind of have their own agendas, you want to focus on that end goal, the long-term business goal, because that is probably the one thing that they all have in common. They might have different ways of, going about it, or opinions on specific scenarios or plans to solve for the problems, but find the thing that they all have in common and recognize that throughout the presentation they might have questions or concerns based on their role that you're going to have to be prepared to address.
That's a really good point.
Example, if we're at the Grand Canyon, everybody know the Grand Canyon, Arizona? It's really big giant hole, ancient. If you're standing on this end and you want to be on that end, that's current state, that's future state. The gap is the Grand Canyon and the Colorado River. So now you have to identify that gap to that customer, to that client, to let them know this isn't like snapping fingers, this is some hard stuff. So a key component is to say, what are we capable of doing? What resources do we have at our disposal? And validate that gap with those stakeholders. Are these really issues that prevent us from getting from one side of the Grand Canyon to the other? That's called a gap analysis. So we've got introduction of the problem, we've got our current state, we've got our future state, we've got our gap, right? The gap that prevents us from getting to the future state. So what would we do? We want to fill the gap. So we come up with a bunch of alternatives. Once again, using critical thinking in our giant brains to solve a complex problem with a variety of alternatives that allow us to partner with that client to figure out what works out best for them and for us, frankly. Okay, so let's go back to the Grand Canyon for a second. Current state, standing here, future state, want to be there, gap, that. Alternatives. Well, one alternative is we get a helicopter, we can hop in the helicopter and we can ride the helicopter across the Grand Canyon. That'd be super awesome. That actually would be super awesome. Take us like 2 minutes to get across the Grand Canyon. Cost us a ton of money though. Okay? Does it work? Sure. It's an alternative. How about another one? Well, we could climb down 5,000 feet, walk across, wade the river, climb back up, get on the other side. Probably deadly. Die of dehydration, get eaten, drown, take 8-9 days, but you could do it. It's an alternative. And you know what? Probably cheaper than a helicopter. Alternative. Alternative 3, I could take a couple big steps back, wind it up, get a good running start, a little bit of a tailwind, give it a shot. Give it a shot. Right? Come off the left leg. Give it a good shot. I would probably find out quickly if I failed or succeeded. But it's an alternative. Someone would say, well, it's cheap, it's fast. We'll find out if we succeed or fail in a hurry, and then we can go try something else maybe. If it doesn't work, if it does work, that's pretty cool. Those are all alternatives, aren't they? I guess the fourth one would be walk 5 feet to the right and there's a bridge there and you walk across it and we're okay. Wow, those are our alternatives that you would offer to that client. Because here, I want you to take note of. Imagine your audience isn't necessarily just like one person who's listening to you saying, yeah, that's a great idea. Oh, I love that one. I don't like that. I like that. You're talking perhaps to the CFO who's interested in the money. Well, I'm not paying for the helicopter. I don't care. That's too expensive. See if you can jump it. It's pretty cheap. I'm talking to the COO who's saying, wow, you could probably walk across that bridge. That'll probably work pretty good. Maybe I'm talking to the head of engineering saying, I don't think the jump thing is going to work. You're talking to the head of sales and marketing saying, wow, we should take a helicopter. It'll be awesome splash. Who cares how much it is? So you have to be able to reach, connect with each one of those kinds of audiences. One's going to be looking at cost. One might be looking at timing. One might be looking at revenue opportunity. Other one might be looking at splash. Other one might be looking at engineering opportunity, capability, feasibility. So it's that. That's why you offer the alternatives and you share them with those stakeholders to see which one wins out. And they might all be compelling, frankly. Ultimately, you need to come to a recommendation. And you work
for alternatives, I think the biggest thing is leading up to this slide or this part in your presentation or discussion with your client. The first few slides or points are all about how we understand you as a trusted advisor. We get it. We hear you. We know what you're going through. This is where in the alternatives and recommendation section, you start getting into, okay, here's why we're here today. Here's how we as a team, no matter what the team is, here's how we can help you get to where you want to be. So when you're thinking of those alternatives, it's not only what can we do to get you to your future state, it's also what can we as a trusted advisor provide you that you cannot do for yourself. So what can we add on to what you're already doing in order to help you get there faster or more efficiently or whatever the outcome is. I think that's the difference between the introduction, current state, future state gaps, and then the second half of the consultative framework is how are we going to get there together? And here's how we, as a trusted advisor, can do that for you. So I just wanted to call that out, that when you're presenting the alternatives, it is kind of like a switch into, now that we're all on the same page for what's going on, how we got to this point and where we want to go, here's how we're going to get there.
Great point.
With the client on that. That's not done in a vacuum. You're solving a business problem with them, right? So it's cool. So, big thing, make your recommendation, make it strong, but it's got to be aligned to the strategy like we talked about in the beginning. You can't just say, well, you know what, I've got another idea. Let's try to shoot the rocket at it. Well, shooting the rocket isn't part of our strategy. We have 4 different pillars that we can go for, so it's got to be strategic alignment. Right? And then the last part, what are you going to get out of it? Remember, we talked about urgency, we talked about solving a strategic problem, and certainly you have to consider return on investment or cost or revenue capabilities or margin capability, whatever, associated with your recommendation. You have to tell a story. But these are all 1, 2, 3 slides a piece. Right? You're not creating this like 5,000 slide PowerPoint deck. You're getting the idea across. You're still doing all the rigor associated with it, but then you have to be able to tell the story. And you have to tell the story from a business perspective, right?
That's
Everybody okay?
Jess, about how you need to do it for all of the stakeholders, right? You need to be high level enough where each stakeholder is getting something out of this presentation, but you're not tailoring it too much to the CFO or to the head of operations or whoever is in the meeting, because you need them all to come out of it agreeing on what the plan forward is. So it's a really fine balance between making sure you have enough detail and keeping it high level enough where it appeals to all of the stakeholders in the room, which is difficult to do, but asking the right questions and following this framework helps.
Yeah. And give them just enough detail to where they want more from you. They see the value, they want more. And that's a great next step, a great next meeting is, well, let me tell you more, and it gets that next meeting kind of secured. But yeah, I agree. It's a balance of just enough, but not too much.
Yeah.
Now, the next thing then is, I love it. I love your recommendation. We especially love the fact where we're not going to take 2 steps back and then go make a leap for it. We don't want that part. So you come up with a roadmap. A roadmap is really essentially a project plan. If we were to go do this, how would we go do it? And you talk about perhaps various work streams, owners, tasks, timelines, durations, dependencies, risks. We're going to cross the Grand Canyon. We're going to do the bridge one, thankfully. We're going to do the bridge one. It's the best recommendation. So how would we do it? Well, if you just try to walk across, like that thing's a few miles across, and if you go like in the middle of the day, like in the summer, it's going to be super hot. Got it. So what do we need to do? And there's no bathrooms on the bridge. Okay, so we need to come up with a plan. So step 1, hydrate. Let's go buy some water. Got it, or go get some water. Got it. Step 1. Step 2, use the bathroom. Step 3, put on comfortable shoes. Step 4, make sure you have the right clothes to wear. Step 5, always put on SPF at least 50. Step 6, cross the bridge in one fell swoop. Get to the other side. Signal everybody. Step 8, signal everybody on the other side, hey, I made it and it's cool. Cross the bridge. You make a plan. You share that plan, a roadmap, with that client to let them know who's accountable for what, when, and how. I love it. What do? Well, we do next steps. These are like the top 10 things we knew we need to do to get started, right? To get going. It's the catalyst, the accelerant to get moving.
I think something that
Absolutely.
is difficult sometimes to understand is the difference between the roadmap and the next steps, because the roadmap is the plan for the entire engagement, since you're all agreed on the recommendation and you know the steps forward. And then I know for me, sometimes I get confused between the difference between the roadmap and the next steps. The roadmap, like Al said, it's the project plan. It's everything that needs to happen to get to that end solution that you agree upon, where the next steps are what you as the leader of the meeting and the presentation need to do in order to make progress on that roadmap. Because you, at the end of your presentation, you don't want to leave anyone hanging or wondering when the next meeting will be or when the next email will come and they can expect it in their inbox. It's very, very tactical. And it's all of the pieces that bubble up into like the kickoff of the roadmap, or essentially the project plan. So it's a really important distinction between the two. But the next steps are so important to make sure that you have sign up from all of your stakeholders and you do not lose momentum from this meeting.
Yeah, great call out. And like you said, Bridget, the not leaving people wondering. You don't want to leave things open-ended. Al talked a little bit earlier about urgency. So, you know, you need to keep that tone of urgency going, lay out the immediate next steps, and show that the team is ready to take action. And then actually following through is so important. So, you know, if someone asks for material or has a question and you need to go back to the team to get the answer, and you say you're going to get back to them in 24 hours, do that. Actually do that. It's so important to follow up and follow through when you say you're going to do something. And I think a lot of those action items probably come up around this point of the presentation.
Sure.
You've got to, again, get that stakeholder buy-in. Like, is everybody on board? Like, if we go and let this thing fly, is everybody in? And you get that approval, you get that buy-in, you get that engagement. You get people to align resources as a result, both time meaning people, and money. Right? And then last part, how can we get some quick wins under our belt? Some things that are high value, but like low cost or low time, just to get us going, get a win in the good column. You know what I mean? Client will love that. If they can get a business win from you quickly, because everybody else then will buy in on it as well. So far, so good? Right. That's a consulting framework. Here's the last part that I want to share with you. It will never get taller. Like, that is really as complex as you're going to see it. Yeah, people will say like, well, you forgot this, you got to put this in, blah, blah, blah. I got it. Guess what? You can secure a multi-billion-dollar deal with that deck. It won't get taller. It might get wider, meaning current state might be more than one slide, or roadmap might be a few different slides, or recommendations might be across several or many, or I need to crack open a spreadsheet, or I need to show you this diagram, or I need to show you how this solution all works together with some sort of picture or graphic. Yeah, absolutely. The Christmas tree is still the same though. Still the same tree. Maybe a little fatter, wider at the bottom or something like that. Still a tree. Put different ornaments on it depending upon our industry, what our client's business need happens to be. But it's still the same. It's practically immutable. You learn it, you repeat it again and again. If the process is on, then even you don't have to be all the time, because the process always works. I'm not saying you're going to secure every deal all the time. I'm saying you're going to give yourself an opportunity to be successful every single time. And who would not kill for that, right? Like, you would want that opportunity. So, carry this with you, please. Does anybody have any questions? Okay.
How good is Al's energy throughout that whole
Yeah.
thing?
That was good. I felt like I was in class.
I think that was just so good. And one of the fastest ways to add value, especially early in your career, is by using that structured process to bring clarity to those complex problems. And when you take something that's kind of messy or technical and you help the team break it down into a very simple, actionable framework, you immediately add value to your team. And ask the thoughtful questions throughout: the who, what, when, where, why, how. Help organize the information. Remember to tailor communication to the different stakeholders. Show that initiative and curiosity throughout, and you're going to add so much value.
I agree 100%. This is a great reminder for you and I, Jess, but I know that we've been taught this before, and we see that it really does work, and you can apply it to so many instances in your job and whatever you need to. So I think it's such a valuable lesson, and the quicker you can learn that and flex this muscle and do this consultative framework over and over again, the more successful you're going to be.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.